Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello there, all you wonderful Fun and Games podcast listeners. I'm Dave Jackson from Tales from the Backlog, and I'm back for yet another Side Quests episode. That's right, Matt and Jeff could not keep me back forever. I'm back. Today I'm going to talk about Dragon Quest V, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. Dragon Quest V was first released in 1992 for the Super Famicom only in Japan, and then it got a remake on the PlayStation 2 in 2004 only in Japan, and then it got another remake on the Nintendo DS in 2006, not only in Japan. That's the one that got officially localized into English, and that is the version of the game that I played. There are fan translations for the other versions, though, if you do want to check out different art styles for sure, but different interpretations of, what the game is. Certain characters have different names and stuff like that. But I'm not here to break down the differences between them all. I'm here to talk about why this game helped me get into the legendary Dragon Quest series after writing it off for quite a long time. Now, I was about to get on here and just say that Final Fantasy dominated the conversation with my friends, but honestly, there was not a whole lot of RPG talk amongst my friends when I was younger. So I don't remember the first time I even heard of Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior. It may have been well into college or even beyond that. It might have even been when I started looking into games to buy on my Switch and found Dragon Quest XI. I did play Dragon Quest XI, and I got bored after about 30 or 40 hours, which is a long, long time to play a game before realizing you don't really like it. So I put it down and kind of thought, if this is what Dragon Quest is, I'll never play another one. And then shout out to my good friends and friends of Fun and Games podcast, the Retro Hangover podcast and their King of Games tournament. They did a tournament for the year 1992 to see which game deserves to wear the crown of the King of Games from 1992. And Dragon Quest V made a March Madness style surprise run through the tournament, very, very deep into the tournament. I won't spoil what game won. Go listen to that if you want to check it out. But that made me interested in playing Dragon Quest V and kind of, not 100%, but kind of giving Dragon Quest another chance as an idea, as a concept. So I played the DS version of Dragon Quest V, and I gotta say, this is the game that made me understand, number one, what the appeal of Dragon Quest is, and then number two, gave me something beyond what I probably can expect from other Dragon Quest games, to be honest. The key thing about Dragon Quest V is its unique story structure and its simple but very effective way of telling the story and taking you through the twists and turns and things that happen. So Dragon Quest V begins literally with your character being born. The very first scene of the game is your character's birth. And you get to name your character. And in Dragon Quest games, you normally play as the hero, right? The hero of legend. But at the beginning of this game, you play as a little kid, and you're not a hero. You're just a kid. You can't fight anything. You're a kid. The hero is your dad. And you follow your dad around for a while, and it's gamified really well. I love when RPGs do this, when they have characters of differing power levels or experience in life, experience within their fighting ability and things like that. At the beginning of Dragon Quest V, you follow your dad, he fights everything, and you just kind of tag along. You get a few hits in, but you do 1 damage, and then your dad kills everything in 1 hit, because he's awesome. He's your dad. It's great for building up this role model in your head as you play. And then you play through your character's life from being a child to being a kind of like a young adult to being a slightly less young adult. You don't play until you're 60 or something. This is still a Japanese RPG. So what's cool about this is as time passes, your characters come and go throughout the party. Your character that you created is consistent, but there are other characters that come and go, including family members. So this is, at its heart, a game about family and found family as things happen throughout the game. And honestly, I'm not sure that I've played an RPG like this that goes through these different time periods and really focuses on your close family and friends through time like this, to the point where it's very easy to map on certain events in the game onto real life experiences that people have. And so I tend to think of Dragon Quest stories as these kind of fairy tales, as bedtime stories, as, a warm blanket as you're riding on the subway to work or in bed before you go to sleep. And Dragon Quest V has that vibe, but the story is not all rainbows and butterflies. There is real, emotional, impactful tragedy. There is a roller coaster of success and defeat and rising success again and building yourself up only for it to crumble once again. There's a real sense of those things. And it's done, even though, of course, we're in this Dragon Quest, this medieval fantasy setting, it's done even through that setting with magic and dragons and monsters and all kinds of stuff like that. It's done in such a personal way. That's why I said it's simple but effective, because ultimately this isn't like a lot of RPGs in the genre that have these huge story twists with wild ideas, and Dragon Quest V is not out there like that. It's super close to home. It's close to your heart, the things that happen. And so as you go through the game, you go through these things with your character, and by the time you hit the credits and you see how the ending goes and stuff, it brought tears to my eyes, and to see where the character ends up after all of this, as the Dragon Quest Overture is playing and the credits are rolling, I had tears in my eyes, which is not something I expected out of a Dragon Quest game. I expected a nice, warm hug as I'm laying down and, getting sleepy before I go to bed at night. The other aspects of the game, honestly, the combat is fine. It's functional. It's not great. It's not going to challenge you outside of a couple of bosses. There are a couple of big boss fights throughout the story, including the final couple bosses are quite difficult, at least in my opinion, but that's, when I'm on side quests here and I'm not in full critic mode, I can say it's not why we're here. We're not here for a great turn-based combat system in Dragon Quest, although this game does have an early version of a monster catching system a la Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei or something like that. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's really cool. Your monsters that you collect have a lot of personality. They have cool moves. They're often very useful, sometimes more useful than the human characters that you can recruit. But at the end of the day, the thing that I think I'm going to come back to the series for, even if I'm not going to get that emotional rise and fall and things that really hit me in the chest in the story like Dragon Quest V has, is that kind of cozy vibe. And this genre, Japanese RPGs like this, are inherently pretty cozy, I find. Even, games like Final Fantasy VI that have huge tragedy and the fate of the world is at stake, I still find them to be pretty cozy to play. But Dragon Quest just kind of turns that up a notch. The music is very charming and cozy. The writing is very warm. There's really no sharp edges around in here. And I go to other games for that kind of thing, but there is room in my heart for things like this. And I just thank Dragon Quest V for introducing me to it. So yeah, I think this is a fantastic game. Unfortunately, it's locked on the DS, or there's an iOS version if you want to play it on your phone. I hate playing games on my phone, but that's there. But there are other ways, of course, that you could play the DS or those fan translations from the Super Famicom or the PS2. I have seen them. They look cool. The PS2 version especially looks really neat. It's very different looking from the DS version. And again, I'm just grateful to have played this. I'm grateful to have had the experience that the game took me on. And I'm also grateful that I now feel like I get the appeal of Dragon Quest. And as a huge fan of this genre, it was kind of disheartening to have such a huge, influential, beloved series over here that I just felt like I didn't get the appeal of. But now I do. And that's the beauty of long series like this, where they do different things in each game. You might not pick the right game at first, but eventually maybe you will find that one that kind of unlocks how it all works for you. And that was Dragon Quest V for me. So thank you all for listening. I hope you give this game a try, especially if you are like me and just kind of I don't see what the point of Dragon Quest is. it doesn't have a lot there for me. I think that Dragon Quest V might be the one to break down those barriers for you. So thank you for listening. If you would like to hear a more in-depth analysis of Dragon Quest V, I'm going to have an episode on my podcast towards the end of July, and my podcast is called Tales from the Backlog, where every episode we do a deep dive on one game in particular with no spoilers for quite a while. The Dragon Quest V episode, probably an hour and a half with no spoilers, and then another hour plus of spoiler talk about the story. So if that sounds cool to you, consider checking that out. Or I have over 170 other games in the podcast catalog. So it's always me with a different guest on the show. So find a game that you like or find a game that you haven't played that you might be interested in, and know that we're not going to spoil the story for you for a while. So once again, I'm Dave Jackson. Thank you for listening. And as always, happy gaming. Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.